Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Podcast. This is the podcast where I'm having conversations with good people doing good things for the good people, people who are entrepreneurs, designers, developers, all kind of different people, but the people that have something to say and that are really making an impact. Today, I have the pleasure to have Steven on the podcast. I was a guest on his podcast. We tackle kind of my story. Now it's time to go back to his story. He has a lot of things to share. And Steven, why don't you just present yourself in short?
Yeah, how's it going? So I'm Steve Pope. I run SGP Labs. I help primarily professional service providers you do content marketing. So I help them think through a lot of the stuff that they want to do, but they just don't have the time to think through, or the patience to kind of put all the pieces in place to get them going. And I've been on that journey for about 5 months now. So early in the business.
Yeah, I mean, I was just today thinking, it's been almost a year. Like on 13th January, it would be a year since I started Funky Marketing, and I plan to do it alone, like the first year, to learn about entrepreneurship and about everything. And now we have, actually it's 5 of us here, and 2 more people part-time, and it's kind of crazy. That's how awesome. Things are going fast. So let's get back from the start, from the childhood. We didn't talk about it, so
yeah, sure.
I want to hear how it was. So how it was growing up.
Yeah, so I was always just a real curious kid. I was always building things, always building trinkets, machines. I got into doing electronics pretty early, like soldering and putting together. Really, I was always trying to invent something. So I am an engineer, but it was always to kind of build something. So, and that naturally led me to get into software. My dad he was an IT guy. He was always building computers. And so that was just part of my upbringing, is putting together computers. I got my first computer when I was, I don't know the exact age, but 4 or 5 or something like that. And playing games, writing little programs. So that was kind of my childhood. And then that always kind of continued to grow. So I started to do more and more computer stuff. I wrote programs to categorize my baseball cards. I wrote a menu program. This is, well before we had graphical user interfaces. So I wrote my own menu program to navigate DOS. Stuff like that. So that was kind of my early childhood.
Sounds good. And trying to see the similarities, how much we look up to our parents. My father was a basketball coach, so it was natural for me to go and play basketball and do all kind of things. I even learned from him when it comes to entrepreneurship. He was a failed entrepreneur, so I learned some of the things that I shouldn't do. I'm sure my my mother had some other opinions.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because my parents, they all had their own businesses too. So I think that's kind of why, I'm assuming that's why that I've just always had my own business. Pretty much, I've only had a job for 2 years of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And as I'm talking with people, I see that a lot of people who have that heritage from the entrepreneurship from the parents tend to become entrepreneurs. Like in my environment, my father was an entrepreneur for a short period of time. Most of the time, he was working in marketing when it was I don't know, when I was born in 1984. So it was totally different things. We just got computers and everything. And then in the later years, he worked in in a different way in marketing, but like more in tourism, organizing events, those kind of things. And it's yeah, I guess it was that's why I waited so long to become an entrepreneur. I guess like I didn't have the background. The only one that I have was failure,
Yeah.
so it was
And,
kind
and
of.
you, and you also mentioned that in your country, it's kind of frowned upon. I saw one of your articles
Yeah.
on that.
People still think about it that way. Things are changing a bit, but like they're still the government doesn't support it. We don't have like opportunities to get investments, to get into conversations about like growing the business actually, and it's kind of hard. But things are like a bit changing. We are like kind of opening up a little bit, and it's cool because we have like a couple of good companies, couple of companies that are really like successful when it comes to like mobile gaming or like blockchain, those kind of things. But I mean, we still have a long way to go because the ecosystem isn't self-sufficient because people and companies aren't supporting each other. Everybody works for
I
themselves,
see.
and that's kind of the thing. Need to go and like as it is in every like ecosystem, the government needs to provide some strategy and some stuff behind it, so they can just not impact it on it, but support the system as it grows.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, Doug, because like, at least from my perspective, like I'm like being from the outside, to me, I see all these new things happening outside the country. And like, that's like top of mind for me because I'm just like, man, times are changing. So I know like for you, you're like, man, it's not happening fast enough. For me, I'm like, man, seems like it's happening fast. Because I just see what's happening, especially in technology. Like that's, software, the things that where it's just like, it's not really tied down to any geographical location. Um, I just see these things happening. It seems like fairly quick.
Yeah, the technology is coming like, I mean, just in a year, what happened. So kind of when we look at it, like e-commerce went like 10 times in the future within like a year. But yeah, so tell me, what was actually your first job?
Yeah, it was at CompUSA. It was it's a computer parts store, and it was pretty funny. I mean, it seemed very natural. So, but it was kind of a funny story because it didn't last very long, and it really made my mom quite angry. But my buddy so I was in high school. My buddy was interviewing for a job at CompUSA. He's like, "Yeah, you should come with me because you're really into computers." So I went into this interview. And I think I kind of blew him away because I was just like, I knew all this stuff about computers. And then my friend, so then they offered me the job and not my friend. But then like they put me in customer service. So I was just handling all the returns. And I was like, I really wanted to be like talking about computers. So like the dream for me was the upgrades desk. This is where everybody came in to talk about all the things, like actual computer stuff. So I think the job lasted like 2 months, and then I just quit. And my mom was just horrified. She couldn't believe that I would start a job for 2 months and then quit. I think that was the beginning of a pattern because anytime I had an actual job, I just didn't take it very. I couldn't stay in it. So, but yeah, CompUSA was the first one.
Yeah, so did you have in mind like I'm just now gonna quit because I don't like it? Did you have a plan, or did you just react instantly like this is not something that I want to do? We'll figure out later.
Yeah, I wish there was some big master plan that I was hashing out, but it was like it literally. I just didn't like it. I looked at my bank account and I looked at how much money I spent, which wasn't very much. I've never been like a big spender. I'm not into like buying things really. Like I just buy the things that I really enjoy. So I looked at my bank account. I think I had like $1,000 in there. I was like, man, I can live I can live like 2 years on this. So I said, why do I have this job? There's no reason for me to have it. So, and I was in high school and I just didn't see the value in it. And so after that, I just finished out high school, and then I went to college. So after I graduated high school, I did get another job that I held for, I think, 9 months, close to a year, which is I think my longest stint. And I was getting up at 5 a.m. I was in traffic for an hour going there and coming back because it's LA traffic. It's just kind of crazy. And I was doing computer stuff there. I was basically fixing computers and all that kind of stuff. And I had this. My parents were always very generous with helping me with school. But if I wasn't in school, then I pretty much had to. At that point, I had to have a job. So, but I still hated that job enough to where I was like, I'm just going to go back to school. And that was kind of the catalyst to actually go back. And so I went to a junior college. And it was funny too, because I could barely get into college. I wasn't very good in school. I'm dyslexic. So, and like when I was in high school, my mind was always wandering. It was always like, what am I going to do when I get home? What am I going to build? What software am I going to write when I get home? So I didn't really do very good in high school. I almost dropped out. So the only college that actually accepted me out of high school was a Christian school that I think they would let anybody in as long as you paid them enough money. You know, it's just like and I didn't want to go there because it just didn't fit. Like, so then I went to a junior college for a couple of years, and what's funny there is that I barely did well enough there to get in to transfer. So I got into this thing called the transfer admission guarantee. And it was basically, if you get this GPA, then you can, and you pick, and depending on the college you want to go to, if you get this GPA and you do these things, you're guaranteed to get in. And I was like 0.2 above the limit. You know, it's just like school for me is like, I love learning and all that stuff, but like just the mechanics of a normal school, it's just hard for me to perform in. So.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, before you said all this, like I was just about to say, kind of like the story reminds me of all of my friends who are like very into technology, like fixing computers, working in the store, and then got to study electronics, and then there's a twist. Like I still see there are like obstacles for dyslexic people, for people who have any kind of like trouble of following the lectures, actually to be good at school. Kind of like it's not created that way.
Right. Yeah. It's meant for a certain type of people, and I would see like those people thrive, you know. And you know what's interesting is I learned that. Like, luckily, my elementary school, they learned what was going on, because they're like, why are you not doing well? Because it seems like you know some stuff. Like, it doesn't seem like you're. So they kind of diagnosed what was going on, and they would try to help me. But I think more than anything, I just knew something was different, and I had the awareness to understand that. So I just kind of started to learn how to learn for myself. So for instance, like I've done a lot of my learning. Now it's kind of great because you have YouTube and all these resources, right? So it's incredible. But back in the day, I would just interview people that I knew were smart. So I had several friends that read a lot, and they would talk about the books. I would just sit down with them for a half hour. I would just start interviewing them about the book. Like, tell me what's going on. Like, they were basically my Cliff Notes. I don't know if you know do you know what Cliff Notes are? It's like, yeah, okay. I didn't know if they called it the same thing, but yeah. So I would just interview people, and I think it's interesting because I think even those skills come to me today. You know, it's like I've got my own podcast, and I'm just interviewing people and using those same skills, just like digging into the things that I find, like the way I kind of run my podcast is like, it's like I'm just interviewing them to learn the things that I think are interesting. And that's kind of how I navigate my particular podcast. And I think it stems from just, being a kid and doing those things.
Yeah, it's kind of like I like to see it as kind of a mentorship, like when they say how can I find a mentor, like the answer is usually find the person that you look up to, that you want to learn from, and get as close as possible to them. So now podcast gives you the right opportunity to do that, even to some people that maybe you thought you can never had a chance to talk to, right?
Yeah, the podcasting has been really interesting. It's been I'm looking forward there. Sometimes it is kind of like it is a little bit of a, it's like weekly commitment. So, but yeah, it's been an interesting thing to figure out on a lot of different angles, but that's one of the main ones. It's just like reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'd like to hear about your journey. How about coming on? And for the most part, people come. I haven't had too many people say no. I've had a couple people just not show up. But it is how it is.
I was just like last week, I think it was the first time that my guest overslept. And it was like, okay, like I'm in Serbia and trying to fit in people in 7 a.m. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
But like, I was just thinking, listening to you, I was thinking about when I entered like the college, because I wanted kind of to study tourism because I was organizing all kind of events and being interested in those kind of things. And I tried to do this in the Faculty of Economics, like in Belgrade, like the capital city. And the only way that my parents let me actually go into that department is because like it's tourism and hospitality. So it's kind of, my mother wanted me always to go somewhere when there's mathematics. And it's funny because I didn't learn mathematics at all. I was just like clever and figuring things out. I have like with us like grades are from 1 to 5. So I had tools from mathematics and from physics, and I had 5s from all the other things that we learn. So I can have an excellent. I can be excellent in the end of the year, and I just didn't learn that. I just figured out, oh, I can get 2 and I can go on. But like, I didn't get on the state budget in Belgrade, so I needed to go back to the nearest city from my hometown, Niš, and they didn't have that department. So I ended up studying marketing.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's kind of like interesting, and I what I knew about marketing is only advertising at the time. Like I know, commercials and those kind of things. I didn't know all kind of aspects of marketing, and yeah, it's kind of interesting how things develop in our lives.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because as you were saying that, I was almost wondering. It seems like it would almost be hard to teach marketing. It's like you can talk about it, but then it seems like you kind of have to do some of the stuff to really learn it. At least that's kind of been my experience. Looking back, I'm wondering if, because obviously people did teach me. I've read books, I've watched videos, but I end up not really figuring those kind of things out until I actually try them.
Yeah, I like to try out things as well. I think today I read on LinkedIn by the post by Yak when he said the same thing, like marketing you need to do it to understand certain things. But tell me, how did you actually start your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so it kind of happened, I guess on purpose, because I just didn't like having a job. But after college, I started building a car computer. So this was back in like 2000, and it was just like I sourced the whole thing together myself and built the software for like a car computer. So I had a screen and like I could play games in my car and it'd play music. And then while I was doing that, a couple of people saw it, and they ended up just hiring me to write software. And So, right out of college, I was already kind of working for myself. And then, yeah, well, I will say this too, though, as well, as like, ever since I was a kid, I was always trying to sell stuff. So I had the lemonade stand. I had, like, on the 4th of July, I would go buy Cokes and Pepsis, and we would go up and down the hot street during the parade and like sell, upsell the Cokes that I bought for 25 cents for like $1, So I kind of always had that spirit of trying to get people to buy things. And, my family was nice enough to buy some of the stuff I created. But then, so then back to college, it's like after college, I started just writing software. And then fairly natural, I did have a stint in there where I took a job for a short period of time, but pretty much after that, I was just writing software. And I kept doing that. And just over time, the company just built up. So by the time I ended up selling the company, there were, I had 25 employees. I had earned several awards for growing the business, including like Inc. magazine, fastest growing companies. And, we were doing $7 million a year. So it kind of just, my journey was, at that time, it's kind of funny because some of the things I learned in that process is kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing now. But it just kind of like happened. I was doing good work. I love to code. I love to help entrepreneurs build their stuff, whatever they needed. Business owners. I just loved getting in there and helping people, helping them think things through. And so by doing good work, the business just kind of grew. And then that's kind of how it started.
Oh, sorry for that.
No worries.
I'm looking at people around me. Like I'm in sort of a co-working, and in the other room are like I don't know how many of them, like 7 people, all of them like below 25, all of them developers, or
Yeah.
I have a few people that are into communications, but just like I can see the will, the stamina and everything, like building something new, building the company. And like, I recognize the enthusiasm of building something new. And like, just like a few days ago, they were like, okay, we built like three apps in 3 months. And I was listening to that, like, that's really great for somebody who doesn't even have 25 yet.
Yeah. That's the coolest thing about software. It's funny too, because part of the reason why I stopped trying to help other people build was partly that I saw that there were so many other people doing that. And it's not that I don't want to be one of many. It's just building software is hard, and I've done so much of it that I guess I kind of fell out of love building technology for other people. It's really hard. There's all sorts of things that don't go well. The projects are never on time. So it's just like, but it's just like I saw the competition getting more and more intense. I saw my passion for helping people do it getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's not a good combination for building a business. Like increased availability, losing passion. So that's ultimately why I was like, I thought, and it was a hard decision to make too, because when you've done something for so long, your brain is always like, okay, the next step is to do this, the next step. So my brain was logically, it kept saying, this is the next thing for you. But then my heart was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I do love to build technology. I will again, but I will do it for myself. So like, for instance, right now, my company is doing mostly services, but my long-term vision is to bring technology into it and solve some of the problems that I'm solving for people through technology and software.
Tell me a little bit about it. Like usually nowadays, when people are starting companies, they think about I'm building it for myself, so not with the goal to sell it, or they go the other way and they build the company with having exit exit in mind. I guess you were in the first category, like building something for yourself. And then,
Yeah.
if I understood you well, like you reached the moment where you understood, okay, it's taking a toll of me and I need to change something, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that happened, and so like the first business is like it was very organic, right? And it took a while because it was like I wasn't a marketer. I wasn't doing marketing type things. I was creating content. I was like doing thought leadership, and that is ultimately what helped grow the business. And then also, I always wanted to build a product. Like I always wanted to have something that I could scale, because it was hard to scale that services business because you're just doing all these different projects. You need all these different types of people. Everything is a one-off. And it was just really hard to scale. I mean, you can do it, but so when I started the next business, I did have a couple of things in mind. I wanted to have some sort of product. I wanted to have something where, um, I could package something up. And so I didn't necessarily set out so that I could sell it, although that is in my mind. I want to build something that has, it's like, it's got all the systems and processes and a product in place. So I did go into this one with that in mind. Like I didn't want to do hourly work. I don't do it now. When people ask me, hey, can you do this or this? I just say no. Like these are the products I have. The products have morphed over time, but only for the sake of making the product better so that I can have something that can scale. So yeah, I definitely had more intention to grow it faster, make it scalable, have a product, and being patient to achieve those things and not subside to the pressure of just doing a one-off project or something like that. So yeah, I definitely had I wanted to fulfill those parts of my business or my entrepreneurial career that I didn't really achieve in that first one.
So after those two businesses, right? What did you make? Did you took a break? You want to get out of it? Just think about what's next. I don't know what usually people do. I don't have that experience, but maybe like spend time with the family or
Yeah,
just.
I did do some of that. My brain had a hard time not thinking about what to do next. So I had probably 50 different things. If I could give somebody advice after selling a company, just like relax. Like maybe you just can't. But yeah, so I did spend some time with the family. I like building that company for a lot of different reasons, which is a whole other story. There was a lot going on. So like after selling that, it was a pretty major event. And, even like emotionally, like you built something for that long and then it's all of a sudden gone. You have a team that's helping you, all of a sudden that's gone. Then you got the upside. You have money in the bank and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It's like I wasn't necessarily prepared for that, nor did I have somebody to kind of walk me through. And I didn't even. There was a couple of people I talked to, but I didn't have somebody helping me think that through. So yeah, I did kind of take a break, and I knew my mind told me what to do, but my heart didn't necessarily know. And it took me a while to figure that out. It took me a while to even be aware of that dissonance that existed, which was kind of interesting. So I kind of went through a lot of different like emotional things, just like just becoming like more present. I picked up meditation along the way. I started to kind of realize like the value of patience and all these different. So I think I learned a lot more on the mental side than I really did on the business side, because I had already built a company. So I think the things that I've really learned over the last couple of years is like marketing skills and mental skills, because I've and learning how to cope with being an entrepreneur better is really the skills that I've acquired in the last couple of years.
those are good skills to acquire, and especially like you acquire them not only by like building a business, selling it, but also like getting away from it. It's kind of when you understand what you have actually built, you know, like what other skills do you have, and kind of like the way I see it, getting your mind in the right place so you can go to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That's been the thing I've been going through, and it's been fun, man. It's been. I would say it's like even though it's probably it's the least risky time in my life, because I have things to fall back on, which I think can sometimes make things harder for you. Having that, um, it's definitely been the most challenging mentally to just recalibrate, and then just decide to do something totally different than you've been doing your entire life, like, which is what I'm doing now. I just took a total left turn. I mean, there's a connection, like it makes sense what I'm doing, but it is a total career change. Like, I'm not building technology for anybody. I'm not, of course I'm in this world, you are dealing with technology. How could you not? But I'm not building software anymore for people. And for a while that felt strange. It felt strange to even say that I'm doing marketing, but that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, is that break, was that the time when you started to play piano?
No, I started playing piano earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I started playing piano when I was 28, and I'm 42 now. So what is that, 14 years? I will say one thing that's interesting about learning how to play piano at that age, that like a lesson learned that I think about even today, is that it taught me that you can learn new things, because everyone says you have to start learning piano when you're a kid, or it's just like you can't do it. And I was just obsessed with learning with the time I had, and it took me a long time before I was competent, but it taught me. I was like, you know what? If you really want something, you can do it. And that little lesson has helped me in what I'm doing now, because there are times, well, I'm just being honest, like there are tough moments. Even when things are going good, you wake up some days for whatever reason, and your mind has a different perspective on what's happening. And I don't know why that is. It's the human nature, I guess. You self-sabotage. I don't know what it is, but like thinking about the piano, I was like, you know what? Like, I learned how to play jazz piano when I was 28, and now I learned how to do it. So I can do anything that I really set my mind to. And so yeah, the piano, it's interesting that you brought that up, because it has definitely played a role in like what's going on now. And that's why like I have the posters here, because it all means something, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love that part. I love that you are bringing like jazz, piano, music in, like I'm seeing it from time to time. You involve that in your content and things that you were talking about, and kind of related to it, because like my father at the time was somebody who was throwing like parties in 70s, and like as a basketball player, like girls were all around, and he was playing like all kind of different songs and different vibes, and I kind of think that I inherit some of the taste for the music from him, and now I'm listening to all kind of music. Like I don't know even anybody from here that's like listening to jazz. Like people don't um like when they are alone, they don't remember like let's play some jazz, let's do something differently. They just go some other way. And it's, I don't know, kind of music for me, and I guess it's for you, is important part of everything that's happening. And
Yeah.
I remember when, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and music is interesting too. I actually like all types of music. I mean, even pop songs. I listen to stuff my daughters do. I think it all has a place. I just think jazz is cool because it's really rich and complex, and I like that part of it.
yeah, it's not like there's a lot of improvisation involved, and that's like something that I like. But I wanted to say I remember the time when like I knew my father is about to die. He had cancer and died like 3 months later.
I'm
But
sorry
like
about that.
yeah, it happened like 2015. But I think 20 days before, when we already knew what's gonna happen, like one of the one of the stars, music stars in the ex-Yugoslavia of like new pop wave, like they called it the eternal boy of rock and roll music of Serbia, like died. Nobody knew about him and what was going on for like a few months, and then they just say like he died. And while I was saying goodbye to him with his music and everything, I kind of like said goodbye to my father in a way. And
Mm,
it's like
interesting.
that moment when you are using music to kind of say goodbye to people. I always do that. I'm not somebody who's gonna cry, but I am somebody who's gonna play their favorite songs, their favorite music, and kind of like get that feeling.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, you know, one thing that I haven't talked about this in a while with someone, but music's one of the only arts where I think almost everyone loves it. There's a few people that don't like music, and it blows me away. Uh, like my mom actually, she likes music, but she doesn't like actively play it. But most people love music. They might like crappy music, but they like some sort of music, you know. And I think it's the one thing that bonds most of us together. It's the one channel, the one medium that we can all kind of get on board with. Rhythms, you know, it's like it gives you energy, and you can communicate through it. Even if you're not a musician, just like how you're saying, like you can play a song and communicate something with it, and we all kind of have that power and that ability to talk that way. So I think music is I mean, it's just amazing, you know.
Yeah, like it was like 2 days ago, I was talking with Jake Dunlap
Mm.
on the podcast, and I was talking about him that I saw him doing LinkedIn Live and listening to like Taylor Swift and just going, oh, come on, man. My wife doesn't like it, but I love it. Let's go. And I was like, man, these are some things that we need that people so we can see actually the people in front of the companies, in front of like LinkedIn profiles. And yeah, so tell me, what was the next step? How did you figure out what are you gonna do next?
So after I sold the company, I had this thing that I was going to be a tech advisor, because that your brain naturally tells you that's what you're going to do, right? You have all this experience, you're going to be a tech advisor. So I kept trying to put that together. Something didn't feel right, but it felt like the only thing that was natural. But while I was doing that, I was learning about marketing, like direct response marketing, sales. You know, there's all the like you get introduced to all like the guru coaching and marketing and like direct response, especially in that kind of stuff. So I was studying a lot of that stuff, and I was really intrigued by it. And then by just because I've been in business, I'm always having lunches with different business owners, primarily like service businesses. Um, and I was just always getting them excited about marketing. I was like, man, it's like you guys, I was like, you guys are so like traditional in how you do business, like your networking and referrals. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's all these cool opportunities for for you to stand out, because nobody's doing this, like especially in like that realm. Like most companies are very traditional. They're not doing content, or if they are, it's like they're just like creating blogs and stuff. They're not really thinking about it that way. So I just started talking to them, and I was getting so excited with them. Like there were times where like they started, like I could tell they were like, I didn't have a product at the time, but I could tell like if I did, they would be interested in it. And so uh, after a while of not enjoying what I was doing, I was like, screw this, man. I'm gonna go start to put something together for these people and forget about this thing that I'm not even that interested in. So I didn't know what it was at first. I just didn't know. Like I had ideas of what they might like. So I just started to construct things, like put together like a hypothesis of what someone would be interested in. I ended up just kind of putting together a mastermind of just, I pitched it that we would talk once a month. And so I got 6 companies to buy into it. And then I quickly started to kind of realize, or maybe even panic, that might not be enough. And truthfully, I don't know if that was actually true. It's interesting that how you as the entrepreneur and the people buying stuff from you see value in totally different ways. But I just started to feel like this wasn't gonna be enough. So I moved the calls to every week, and I started creating content that they could actually go through. And as I started going through that, I saw certain parts of that just didn't work very well. A lot of the companies I'm working with are pretty busy, so they didn't really have time to just go through all these videos. And so it just kind of started to evolve. So I switched to the weekly model. Everyone was very happy, but they just didn't go through the videos. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, so it was a success. There was a couple of people that were just like, this isn't for me. And they kind of bowed out. But the core that stayed was interested in having fun and learning things and applying the things. I could basically give them enough information just through the calls. And they, some of the people went through the videos and stuff. And so then I kept thinking, I was like, okay, so what's the next level? And I basically started to see, okay, what are we able to accomplish as a group? And what are we not? Like where are the things that I know they want to do more stuff, but they're just not able to implement it in a group setting because it's just too there's too many things to think through. There's too much to prioritize. There's too much to do. And so then I designed another kind of more done with you product. It's not done for you, but it's like I basically come in and I help you think through the strategy. And now I'm just calling it like the Thought Leadership Accelerator. And what's really interesting about this process that I always like to drive home to people is that if you are designing a product, it's almost very vital that you're selling it before you've actually built it, which feels really weird and it feels unnatural. Some people even told me that it's not ethical, which I don't believe in, but that's a whole other story. But it's like, but the reason why it was so interesting is because as I was having these conversations with people, they would essentially tell me what the product was, because I was listening. And so what's cool about this now, and I'll give an example, is that when I describe the product to somebody, it makes total sense to them, and they understand what it is. They understand the value of it. And it was completely designed by basically pitching things to people, hearing what they did like, hearing what they didn't, and then implementing something, and then seeing what didn't work and what did work. And just being like overly, like I cared so much that even when things weren't going perfectly, that people were still on board, because they're like, oh yeah, it wasn't exactly what you said, but it turned out to be cool, and you listened to what we said and you jumped right on every little thing. And so like even just yesterday, I had a call with somebody, and I just thought it was an interesting experience because we were just talking about marketing. He was talking about how he wanted like the copy on his website like reviewed, and he's like, do you do that? And I was like, well, yeah, I could do that, but that's not really what I do. And then I kind of was able to kind of move the conversation toward the product. And it's like, I think this is kind of like how you start to validate something. I moved the conversation to the new product, explained it, and he was like almost ready to buy it by the end of that call. And we had never even met before that call. And I thought that was really cool. He understood what it was. He understood the value. It was something that he needed. It wasn't something that he wasn't looking for that when we got on the call. So, you know, the buying process still has to play out. You know, he just met me. So like, he probably hangs up the phone and thinks a bunch of things like, who is this guy? Like all these different things. Uh, but that process has been fascinating for me, because before I was only selling services, and it was always like, I will do this per hour for you. And to have gone through, to have had the patience and the will and the stamina in some ways of going through this process of pitching people things and letting it evolve and listening to them, and then seeing how people now resonate with what I'm saying, and it's like a package. It's pretty exciting.
It is, and I recognize so many things that is happening to me in your story. Like, I still have trouble in setting up all the things that we do on the website. I still didn't find a way to do it. It's enough that it stated the value that we are providing on the website, but like, I was able to I knew what we were doing and what is the value that we were doing, and I knew the process. So on the sales calls, I was explaining it, and it would fit perfectly with a client and with anybody who was on the call. Actually, I think more people um, we rejected as potential clients that they didn't want to work with us. It happens like in this way because they weren't the perfect fit for what we are doing. So I figured out, okay, I need to write at least 2 articles that are explaining what we are doing, and that's how I can present it. Even when somebody asks me, so can you give me just like an overview of what you're doing? Here are 2 articles. At least that's something that I can do, and still trying to find a way to actually implement it all on the website. Like, we need to do now we actually did the rebranding when it comes to more visually than what it is in the essence of what we do. But when you come to the website, we still have all colors, all logos. So we're kind of waiting for like this Christmas and New Year to find time to work on that. But it's kind of interesting. You started with something, you didn't even know like exactly maybe what is your target group or what is the service, what is actually, let's say, the product, and then you were working with people, talking with them, and kind of developing it. Like, and like, I remember when we started, like, e-commerce was also on our list of potential clients. Now it's definitely not the client that I want to work with, but I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. I saw that in one of your posts. Yeah, it is fascinating if you're willing to like go through that process. I think too many people want to race to the market, because if you just sell a service, people need certain things. People need a website, right? So if you're going to do websites for people, you could probably do it faster, but it is going to be commoditized. Other people are going to be competing for it. And if you're willing to kind of go through the pain and anguish of doing what I was doing, then something cool can happen if you're really aware of what's going on and you patiently go through it. And it's funny too, because you mentioned those pieces of content that you wrote, those 2 pieces of content. That's actually kind of interesting too, because that's kind of how my product developed, is that I ended up making a diagram, partly inspired by some of the things I've seen you do. Like, I saw you do you did a diagram on your content machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I made a diagram of like kind of like a framework for doing content marketing. And it just helped me visualize it. And then I started showing that to people. And then they were like, man, I love that diagram. And I would have to say, like, making that diagram was partly random and not, it was intentional, but not. And it ended up being a cornerstone of what I'm doing now, because I showed enough people that, and like 5 out of 5 people were like, oh, that makes so much sense. And I was like, huh, okay, well, let's double down on that. So it's interesting how content is a vehicle for improving your company. Like, it's not just put it out there and people are like, oh, wow, I have to like work with this guy. No, it's like there's so many nuances to how content helps you. It helps you innovate. It does help bring in customers, but like it's so nuanced, and it also helps develop your company because you're thinking things through in real time.
And especially if you can involve people in creating that content. Like this is also the podcast. These are some things like I was on sales calls. I was sometimes even creating the strategy using Funalytics, just creating these diagrams and everything and explaining why is something there, how the traffic comes, what then happened, what's the process, the whole funnel. And they felt like they are creating the strategy with me. You know, they are part of the process, and then it was easy to move on from there. It wasn't something like, wow, what is he actually talking about? It was like, aha, that's it. Kind of like with diagrams, with all those kind of different things, because people are part of the process, and it's also
they can see it. They can see they can see themselves in the future.
Exactly, and like I mean, that's why Instagram stories was a great thing when they started, you know, because you could have shown what's going on behind the scenes. Like I'm crafting these glasses, wooden glasses, and like there's a whole process behind it, and I can actually show it, you know, or any kind of like product just came to my mind. But so how do you see the future? What's next? What's the direction where you are going?
Yeah, so I'm starting to. So I ran the group. The group's still going. I'm starting to work with new clients on the Thought Leadership Accelerator, and that helping them basically implement this content distribution system that I've put together, and that has been that's been the easiest thing to convert, which is interesting. So what I will do is these projects will be a little bit more hands-on because I'm working the product out. There's still things I need to do, so I have to make sure that these things go really well. But as I'm going through the process with these people and these companies, I'm documenting everything as I go, so that when I get to the next company, and you know, maybe 5 or 6 companies down the line, it will be more productized, and I can. I think to a certain degree, the companies that I'm working with are busy enough. Like it'll be hard. I think we could get there. I think it'll be hard to just say, "Go watch these videos. Here's the templates. Go make it happen." Maybe I could get there, and maybe that framework works for a certain size company or something. But I'm going to continue to refine it and make it as scalable as possible, and really focus on these areas that I'm helping them with, and try to stay focused on that, and not get myself pulled off into all these other places that I'm interested in but aren't scalable. So, you know, I'm going to stay out of the website business. I'm going to stay out of you know, the copywriting business, all these different things, so that I can really refine this product, make it work really well for this group of people, and then hopefully have something that I can roll out fairly quickly and consistently, and have consistent results for people, and achieve that dream, man, of having that scalable product business that I've wanted for so long.
Sounds good. I wish you to be successful with it in the near future, not in the far future.
Yeah, well, it's funny, man, because like we talked about this last time a little bit too, but like one of the things that I haven't been good at is patience. So I'm trying to deploy that. The more patient I am, the faster I can move. I want it to happen quickly too, but I'm also open for it to just take the time it needs. But I hope in the near future, I see it. The trouble is, like, I see it coming together, but I have to let it play out. I'm helping people do some hard things. Like you know how it is. Like creating content is not easy. It involves a bunch of people. There's a bunch of like little tiny things that you have to do in order to make it good. And So I have to be patient and help companies really implement that. But I hope it happens quick too.
Yeah, I mean, man, I learned, I don't know if I'm patient enough. I am. I guess I am. I learned that the hard way when I was like in activism and running NGO. You have to be patient over there, like
Oh yeah,
advocating for the youth and all those kind of things. Changes happen slowly.
right.
But I think I learned how to go with the flow. Like as things are happening, that's how I'm accelerating my skills, my knowledge, and everything else. And just like 10 days ago, like we were short of few people because of the COVID and everything. Like I
Mm.
needed to get back to the operations and actually do some copywriting for the clients, those kind of things, just to help. And I figure out like, okay, there are some things that are just holding me back, and those are not some things that somebody is opposing me. Those are like things that I have in my mind,
Right.
and kind of like coming from Serbia, how much do we charge, like those kind of things. And
Interesting. Yeah.
we've been through the year, so people now know us. They don't recognize us as a company from Serbia, but also as sort of we are close to having a brand. And like I just told to myself, like, you don't have anything to hold you back now. Like
Right.
you can just go, because I don't watch others who are doing more of like similar things. I don't watch them as a competition, because we are different. We are doing things in our own way, not try to
You're
copy anyone.
you're funky.
And yeah, and like that's kind of when I come to an idea. Let's do the funky marketing top voices. Basically,
I saw that. Yeah,
I
that's
was
cool.
listening, I was watching like LinkedIn top voices, those kind of things, and most of the people over there have been on LinkedIn for just like a few months, and they had this initial traction and engagement and everything, and they made them like top voices. So nothing against those people. It just, I felt just like those people are not somebody um, who are actually changing things. So we come up with our own list, like us inside the company. Everybody had like 10 names. Let's come up with something. And basically the idea was, let's do something that will accelerate the traffic, the SEO things, because we didn't work on the SEO at all. And let's like create things that will give us content for the next 3 months.
Yeah,
And
cool.
basically just by doing that, like we did written interview with 20 people. We are recording podcast with 20 people, and all those kind of things. Like that's a huge amount of content. And
Yeah.
in a way, I crafted another service by that. Like we are now doing it for some of the clients, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
I mean, basically just what we were talking about, like listening to the clients, to the customers, and developing things based on what they are doing, but also like listening to yourself. I think this is maybe the most important thing, because like nobody can tell you like use some of that like piano lessons, jazz into what you are doing. It will give
Right.
you a slight edge over the others, or like use that funky marketing name and everything else in what you do. Those are things coming from ourselves, not from the customers.
Right. And you can
No,
also and you can also get distracted. Like I see your TV and I see your poster, Welcome to Our World. My mind could be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, but then it's like, you can get distracted. Like, and you're right. Like I made a post about this the other day. It's like, I don't know that somebody could have helped me design my set. And it didn't happen overnight. I just kind of patiently did it. But I did it, and I patiently and unintentionally, but intentionally built it, if that makes any sense. Like, I know that's kind of like a lot of contrarian words, but it's true. It's like, I was setting out to be different, but I didn't force it, but I was intentional, but it was by accident.
so for the end, there are two questions I want to ask you. First one is, what would you double down in the next year? What are some of the things that you would double down in 2021?
So for me, it's kind of two things. It's one, and I know that's not, I'm going to say two things, but it's, for me, like personally, it's just like, just continuing to get better at executing and not getting distracted. But then also, just more intentionally trying to build a community and bringing people together and figuring that out, and trying to build that tribe. So I know that's two things, but that's the two things to answer your question there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, but I'm seeing you already doing it. You are on the right way with creating the community. Like, you are already sharing insights, going into different things, and like the background that you mentioned, that's like the start of doing something differently. And like,
yeah, I just want to be more intentional about it. Like it's easy to go from week to week and kind of float around.
mm-hmm.
And like you can get really distracted by looking at what other people are doing and seeing how they're doing it. And because like, there's hard things to do, and that's kind of why I just said, like, being more focused, being more patient on the really hard things. And building community is really hard. And it's like, the more focused you are at it, the faster I think you can make it happen.
That's wisely said. So anything you want to say for the end? Any message for the audience? Anything that we maybe didn't talk about and you want to say?
I don't know. I think this was good, man. I think, I guess if there's just anyone that's like has wanted to be an entrepreneur, go for it, and be patient towards it, and kind of make sure you're working on the hardest parts, and you're really listening to people. I think it's a really rewarding lifestyle, and I think of it more of as a lifestyle than like making money and whatnot. But like, if you've thought about being an entrepreneur, I'm a big advocate for it. So and if anybody is interested in like some advice or anything, you can always feel free to reach out to me about that. I'm always trying to help people think those things through. And so I'd say, I guess the final thought is, like, if you've been thinking about being an entrepreneur, go for it, because it's a blast. It's a way to really live in the moment and enjoy life. I think that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, me too. I just wrote a post, I think, on Facebook and Twitter, just saying the same things and saying, like, those people that are in entrepreneurship just to survive, they're gonna tell me in the comments, like, get out of here. But like, that's the way I see it as well. So if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's like / Stephen G. Pope. And then you can always find me on through my website, sgplabs.com. And yeah.
You can also follow Stephen's podcast.
Yeah.
Also, he has a good one, talking with some great people about interesting stuff.
Yeah, and you were on there too, talking interesting stuff.
Yeah,
and I want to have you back. I want to have you back on again, man. I feel like there's a lot we could continue to chat about.
Yeah, definitely. We need to build it up. Thanks, man. Thanks for being on. Thanks for sharing a lot of things. And see you all on LinkedIn, I guess.
Yeah, and again, thanks for having me on. And it's been fun watching you on your journey. And you really stand out in my mind, especially like when the first video I saw of you. So, I'm looking forward to seeing where you go here, and it'll be fun to be talking in a year and see what happened.
Yeah, that'd be fun, man.
Hopefully people are walking around like normal.
Who knows what's gonna be. Thank you once again, and guys, see you. Actually, we talk to you in another episode.
Cool. I'll see you.